extremely immoral are now legal. They're accepted. And first of all, I'm a Christian. Second, I am a conservative. I'm a constitutional conservative. And our young people are in here. I don't know how much, unless you're in a private school, I don't know how much American history you're taught. I know do y'all know, how many of you are in public school? We got one here. There's a guy by the name of Finn, Finn, wrote a book a number of years ago called A People's History of the United States. Have y'all ever heard of that? A People's History? The guy's a Marxist, okay? And this is the accepted text in a lot of high schools across the country. It is a corrupted version of U.S. history. And what has happened in the last, 100 years or so, the school system, the educational system of the United States has been invaded. But there has not been a shot fired. You haven't heard this. You haven't seen it. There have been no explosions. There have been nothing like that. But our schools have been invaded. And we are looking at a generation. We're actually in our second generation of young people who have come to hate the United States. They hate their country. They think that we are the blame for the problems in the world. And it starts with teaching young people. And so what we're going to do, this is part one of this. This not only, we're going to be looking at the schools, but the next segment that we'll look at, not tonight, but how socialism and communism has invaded the media. I'm talking about TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, Hollywood. Now, Hollywood is eaten up with communists. The Screenwriters Guild, the actors, Ed Asner. Y'all probably have heard of Ed Asner, one of the biggest liberals in Hollywood. And anyway, what we're going to do tonight is start a look at, and hopefully this is going to work as well as it did for Sunday school. Do I need to move over? Okay. It worked perfectly this morning. Yeah. Why isn't the text coming up? Okay. We really need the text. Okay. While she's working on that, I want to promote a book to you. It's by Lieutenant Colonel Robert McGinnis, and it's called "Give Me Liberty, Not Marxism." And it's basically a history of how this stuff has infiltrated the United States. And our government is eaten up with agents. I don't know if you know that, you probably do. But we are eaten up with not only liberals, and their new term, if you remember just a couple of years ago, Hillary Clinton made the statement, "I'm not a liberal, I'm a progressive." You remember that? I'm a progressive. That's code word for I'm a Marxist. And the things that these people believe right now are being really promoted. And some of these things are going to seem disconnected until we can get this put together. Things like BLM, that is a Marxist organization. All right, Black Lives Matter has nothing to do with justice for black citizens of the United States. Nothing to do with that. It is a Marxist organization designed to get people in the streets to burn and tear up about anything. Global warming is another agenda item. gender dysphoria, especially among young people. You're not a little boy. You can be a little girl if you want to be a little girl. This has infiltrated from K through 12. Our universities are bastions for liberalism in this country right now. And hopefully we can get all this. Okay, there's hope right there. There's hope. All right. I'm fixing to give you a couple. It's a little warm in here. I'm taking my jacket. Are y'all getting a little warm? Are you? I'll be right back. Keep your shirt on. Okay. There we go. A couple of statements that I want to make that sound really harsh and out of line, but number one, government-run public education is a co-conspirator in destroying Western culture. We're talking about American civilization, individual liberty, and capitalism. Karl Marx, basically the father of what we're going to be talking about tonight, made two statements. He said, "My goal in life is to dethrone God and destroy capitalism." The guy hated capitalism with a passion. And so this is built into this system that has been a toxin in American education for about 100 years now. The second statement, I'm talking about government-run public education trains children to be leftist cultural warriors by engineering them to become anti-American Marxist ideologues. Okay, so I won't believe that. That doesn't matter. Okay, this is what is going on. And these statements, strong, but they're provable tenets of a man by the name of John Dewey. Y'all heard of John Dewey? John Dewey is the father of American public education. He was a progressive. Basically, he was a Marxist in his ideas concerning education. And he's the guy that started all of this mess many, many years ago. The 2020 program for International Student Assessment, the PISA, compared American students to nearly 80 countries, students in 80 other countries worldwide, and their educational systems. But the critical comparison was with Communist China. And you're going to see the acronym CCP, that's the Chinese Communist Party. And China outpaced the United States, the 15-year-olds, in each of the three areas of student performance: reading literacy, math, and science. China beat our brisket in that, all right? And I've got the statistics. There we go. In reading literacy, we scored 505. China scored 555. In mathematics, the United States scored 478, China 591. The United States scored in science 502, China 590. They are doing a better job than our government schools here in the United States. All right. This is a rather eye-opening statistic to me. Federal and state governments spend $720 billion annually on K through 12 public education, or $14,400 per student of the 50 million students in government schools. $14,400 times 50 million, all right? There are at least 44 million adult Americans who are functionally illiterate. They cannot fill out a job application. Why? Well, there's a reason for that. And they can't read or write simple English sentences. I think it is a travesty when a kid graduates from school and he can't read. Something's wrong, folks. We have thrown away $14,000 a year for 12 years on a kid that cannot fill out a job application. And again, there's a reason for that. Yes, ma'am. No, I did not see that. Wow. Well, I hope they win that case. It's absolutely ridiculous that this is going on. But this matter of just, and it's called social promotion. You take a kid that can't perform at the third grade level, go ahead and put him in the fourth grade, because we're talking about funding here. And so this is an old problem that we're dealing with. In 1988, 5% of American high school seniors could read well enough to understand the United States Constitution. That was in 1988. So this has not just happened in the last few years. In 2019, the National Assessment Education Progress published the nation's report card. And it tested around 600,000 students nationwide, and they found a steady drop in reading ability. On average, reading scores declined significantly in the 4th and the 8th grade. Now, again, why? Well, this is not accidental. There's a strategy behind keeping kids dumb, okay? Keeping them unable to compete in the marketplace, not only here in this country, but around the world. Now, Peggy Carr is the Associate Commissioner of the National Center for Education Statistics, and she said, over the past decade, there has been no progress in either mathematics or reading performance, and the lowest performing students are doing worse. Folks, that's 10 years. No progress in 10 years. Do you see a problem here? Public education is failing our kids. And I have been to the point for a number of years, I don't encourage kids to go to state schools anymore, universities, because I know what's going to happen to them when they get there. Their faith is going to be attacked. They're going to be presented with these ideas, basically, of revolution. Against what? Against Western culture, all right? Against our idea of marriage. We talked about that a little bit this morning. Marriage is under attack. The family is under attack. Constitutional government is under attack. The church is under attack. And we don't know what's going on. I am convinced that a vast majority of American Christians have no clue, because we don't talk about this stuff. See? There are two things we don't talk about at the table. And what are those two things? Can you think of anything more important than your faith and how your government affects your life? These are the two things we need to be talking about in the country. Well, this got so bad, President Reagan, God bless that man, I wish we had 25 Reagans in Washington right now. It got so bad that President Reagan prompted a commission to study America's educational system. And the final report began with this statement: we are a nation at risk, is what they said. Now, the report went on, quote, if an unfriendly foreign power had attempted to impose on America the mediocre educational performance that exists today, we might well have viewed it as an act of war. As it stands, we have allowed this to happen to ourselves. We have shot ourselves in the head with what we're allowing in our educational system. And this is nothing new. We're looking at indoctrination, not education. Here's our situation. I remember Hillary Clinton making the statement, it takes a village to raise a child. I completely disagree with that. It takes a godly home to raise a child. Years ago, here was the situation. You had a Christian home. You had a mother and a father. They had a married mother and father. They had children. They taught their children, if not biblical values, traditional American values at least, and in many, many instances, they were coupled with biblical values. They went to school, and guess what the school confirmed? Those values, all right? They confirmed what was taught at home, so the child was getting the same thing from two different directions. Now, the home has been so dismantled by this new ideology that Mom and dad may or may not be married. You may have two dads. You may have two girls. You may have a single parent home, and they're not teaching these. So where does the child get his moral foundation now? School. Exactly right. And that's exactly why this was designed this way. This is not accidental. And so much of government schooling from K through 12, and especially at the collegiate level, not only fails to prepare students academically to properly compete, but it puts considerable effort on the indoctrination of students regarding leftist thinking, socially engineering them to reject the traditional Judeo-Christian ethic on which the nation was founded. Public schools do not teach biblical values today. Yes? Well, right, the idea, keep parents out of the educational process of their kids. They're curriculum experts. Right? Well, the idea is to put curriculum experts. The government knows everything about everything, right? That's what they want you to think. And so they have designed what's called curriculum experts to design curriculum to teach our kids, and basically you have nothing to say about it. This is what the government is going to teach the kids. And so education basically is attacking Western culture. It is attacking Western values, because these values, more than any other nation in history, have been built on biblical truth, biblical principles, and this is the very thing that communism and Marxists and progressives and all of these other isms, that is their enemy. And so they're doing everything they can to pull that apart, and I've got to admit, they're doing a pretty good job of doing that. Candace Owens, y'all are probably aware of Candace Owens, very conservative. I love this lady. She said the left-wing leaders of our education establishment are replacing education with indoctrination. Kids are being taught moral values from the school's point of view. The school's point of view basically is a left-wing point of view. And so we're losing the opportunity, if we don't take advantage of that in our homes, we're losing the opportunity to educate our kids concerning these things. Candace Owens went on to say, you might not can read this, quote, "If we continue to allow the Democrat Party to control education, we are guaranteeing them the future, because the youth is the future. Public school is actually failing kids, especially black kids. Evidence. In California, 75% of black boys cannot pass a basic literacy exam. That is astounding. You will never hear BLM or Black Lives Matter talk about that. In Baltimore, they tested 5 schools. Baltimore, they could not find one child that was proficient in reading, writing, and math," end quote. That's Candace Owens. Not one. Do we have a problem? I think we have a problem. And so the question, how in the world did this happen? You know where, my dad was a pastor. You know where I learned the 100th Psalm? First grade, Mulberry Elementary School. Exactly right. We would pray. They had prayer requests. We prayed. The principal would pray on the intercom before school started every morning. I seriously doubt you're going to find a public school that does that today. Anyway, how do we get in this situation where the schools have become indoctrination camps for this left-wing ideology? The school has become this revolutionary tool that is shaping, carving, landscaping the moral fiber of our young people, and they're trying to teach them to reject traditional Christian values of the home and the nation. We've got drag queens in the classrooms reading. What is that telling a child? It's okay. This is normal. This is perfectly normal. Now the Bible, In Kentucky a number of years ago, they took the Ten Commandments out of the schools in Kentucky, and here was the reasoning. Kids might read them. Thou shalt not kill. Oh, no, we can't have them believing that. Thou shalt not lie. Still, all of that stuff, no, we can't do that. But we can bring in a drag queen and have the drag queen read to them, so it lowers their rejection and their defenses of those things to the point where they actually accept it. And so revolution is the key. It is the key. And remember the explosive summer of 2020?
Oh, but I lived through the explosive summer of
67. 67? Okay. This is the same basic stuff.
And it was all over Chicago.
Yep.
California, Detroit burned down.
Major cities, major population centers for decades have been controlled by liberal politicians. That's where this stuff normally happens, because this is part of, let's overturn Western civilization. Let's make it like the East. I'm talking about Russia, China specifically. That's our big enemy right now. They have stolen our technology. I was watching out at Sister Charlotte's house today, a ticker across the bottom. China, we have just now discovered how much more serious their stealing of some of our technology has been than we thought it was. But revolution is the key. And you say, well, revolution against what? Everything. Revolution against everything. Marriage is old-fashioned. Two genders, old-fashioned. New York has 32 gender identifications. Everything that we used to believe that is a moral based on Scripture, we need to overturn that, because it's just not the way things should be working. And we'll go on a little bit here in just a second with that. But over 100 years ago, progressives began to trash our public education system by adopting a philosophy and methods that moved young minds, no matter our kids, away from studying academic subjects, reading. You remember the 3 R's? One of them didn't even start with an R, but the reading, writing, arithmetic. I've got some information at the house. I've got some books that there were textbooks. Yes, sir.
Can you understand new math?
No, sir.
I'm being real honest.
No, I'm being real honest. No.
I've had my grandkids
Common Core math?
me with math, and I sit there and go, what in the world is this? It's true.
Well, it is. And there's a reason for that. Discourage the kids so they don't understand it, and they can, well, we got some information on that. Yes, there's a reason why kids are not being taught to be functionally literate, because what they want to do is to turn our young people into cogs in the government machine. You don't need to think, y'all just need to do what you're told to do. Just shut up and do what the government tells you to do. You don't need these thinking skills. That's where this is all headed. And so they're trying to put the emphasis on these non-academic skills, and they call it being focused on the whole child. Say, well, that sounds good, really? Do you think kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, so on, should they be teaching sexual morals to these kids? See, that's the whole child. What's right and wrong sexually? No. All right? And so this was, actually, the data shows this was just a strategic failure all the way around. And now, Dr. Andrew Bernstein from the City University of New York in 2018 wrote an article called Heroes and Villains. And he exposed the absolute destructive effect that this progressive educational system has had. Early progressives, I'm talking about 100 years ago, they were pushing to distance public education from academics. Did you hear what I just said? Public education from education. Let's don't use our schools to teach our kids academics. Might I ask you, what is the purpose of a school? is to teach academics, all right? And so they were replaced with these activities that were better suited, quote now, for students' future work on farms and in factories. Do you see where this is going? What future did kids have in Russia? What future do kids have in China? Work on the farm, work on the factory, work for the government, shut your mouth, do what you're told, own no property, believe what we say. This is where this whole system is taking a generation of American kids. Jane Addams, who died in 1935, wrote, she was one of these progressives. Here's what she said: "We are impatient with the schools which lay stress on reading and writing," end quote. We're impatient with that. Do you think it's rather important to learn how to read? Right? Do common, just common arithmetic. I think it's pretty significant, but they were getting tired of that being taught to the kids because it wasn't further. See, if you get a kid, or an adult for that matter, who is an independent thinker, you don't make a real good slave hand. Okay? You're an independent thinker. You're an intelligent person. You can reason for yourself. You're going to be a problem. You've got to be done away with. And communism, Mao Zedong, the Chinese dictator, was responsible for the murders of over 100 million Chinese citizens. Stalin, the Russian dictator, was responsible for the murders of over 66 million Russian citizens. Why? Why do they, if communism is so wonderful, why does it violate one of the tenets of Scripture, thou shalt do no murder, thou shalt not kill? Because if you are one of these people who wants to be educated, and you want to be independent, and you want to be a thinker that can think and reason on your own, you're a problem. You want to own your own property, you're a problem. You want to be a business person, you're a problem. And so they just did away with those people the best way they knew how. Mao Zedong said that power comes from the barrel of a gun. That was the Chinese dictator's idea. Yes, sir. Yeah, yes. I'm telling you, the woman was a progressive, which basically is code word for Marxist, all right? Jane Addams went on to say this: "We are suspecting the schools to rest upon the assumption that all knowledge and interest must be brought to the children through the medium of books." And we just can't have that. We can't have kids reading. Because if you read books that oppose us, you read books that challenge us, you're going to be a problem. And so again, it was the whole idea, let's take away everything that would educate these children to become our enemies. Well, let me just tell you this. I'm an enemy of communism. I'm an enemy of progressivism, liberalism. Whether it's Democrat or Republican, you understand that, and more times than not, all of this stuff comes out of the Democrat Party, okay? Not 100% of the time, but a vast majority. So much so that it's definitely a pattern. All right? Curriculum studies. Progressives made another change in public education with this introduction of what they call curriculum studies. And historian Diane Ravitch wrote about this subject of curriculum studies. And here's what she said: "The invention of the scientific curriculum and expert represented an extraordinary shift in power away from teachers, parents, and local communities to professional, quote, government experts. In modern school districts, control over curriculum was transferred from educators who majored in English, history, or math to trained curriculum specialists." And so the deal is, let's take control of the local schools out of local hands. Let's put it in the state's hands. Put it in the federal government's hand. We will tell you what to teach, and if you don't teach this, we'll find you another job. Yes, sir. They don't. They know what they need in Detroit, Michigan. They know what they need to do to steer this whole herd of American workers into the stall of government control. That's exactly what that's about. And so that was another progressive victory. So the social engineering approach to education brought the socialist goal closer to the heart of America. Young people, I'm just telling you, they're after you. Government, education, media. One of the other sections that we're going to get into later that I'm working on now is how this very same system has infiltrated the media. I'm talking about social media, TikTok, Facebook, all of that, movies, television programs, all of that has changed. It used to be Andy Griffith. It used to be things that taught good, moral, solid, based values. You don't see that anymore. That has all been changed as a result of this kind of thing. And so the goal of progressive education is to train the child to benefit society as a whole, to become a government-trained worker. This is exactly what Stalin did in Russia. The only good that you bring to the table is what you bring to the social table. You are not worth anything as an individual. You are only worth what you're worth as you fit into the government machine. That's just socialism, is what that is. All right? All right, reshaping. Okay, I'm going to have to read this, it looks like. The U.S. Bureau of Education partnered with the NEA to call for a revamping of American schooling, and this spawned what was called the Commission on the Reorganization of Secondary Education, or the CRSE. That commission issued what they called cardinal principles of secondary education in 1918. They're still with American education today. So what did the CRSE order schools to do with regards to the education of American students? This commission was set up. We need to design curriculum to teach these kids. Well, exactly what were these basic cardinal principles of education? Well, let's take a look. Personal hygiene. Boy, there's your school subject right there. Brush your teeth, wash your hair. Really, where should that kind of information be taught? At home. Good night. I don't want to spend $14,400 a year for a teacher to teach a kid brush your teeth and take a bath. All right. Number 2, love for clean sport. Well, if you have watched any either collegiate or professional sports lately, I don't think that's worked out real well. All right? Command of fundamental processes. Now, hidden in that is a little bit of reading and writing and Common Core math you're talking about, which is almost unintelligible to the average person today. Worthy home membership. Rules for proper family management. Could you imagine a public school teaching your child home management skills? Vocation. These were, what we're talking about is blue-collar employment skills. Civics. Y'all remember when we used to have American history? And we learned about American history? That was changed back in the 60s to civics. Finn's book? You're going to repeat it. That's exactly right. And the most failed system of government in the history of anything that we have access to is communism and socialism. It has never worked, young people. It has never worked anywhere. Worthy use of your leisure time. Yeah. And then ethical character. That just means government-run moral training. That's frightening to me, that the government is going to be in charge of that. So anyway, these were things that were part of these cardinal principles. Now, Mike Shotwell, who was raised in a Marxist home, wrote a book called Immersed in Red, My Formative Years in a Marxist Household. Now, I want to read to you, because it would take up too much space up there. I want to read to you what Schott said. The Frankfurt School morphed from the Goethe University in Frankfurt, Germany. If you ever heard of the Frankfurt School, it is a very influential educational movement here, even in the United States, under the name the Institute for Social Research, to embrace the goal of developing Marxist studies. However, the school's true research was not focused on violent revolution vis-a-vis Marxism, but on destroying Western civilization through other means. In other words, who militarily, who can come into the United States and kick our flanks? Nobody. So there's got to be an alternate route. And so Shotwell, who wrote this book, says this, quote, a major tenet of the Frankfurt School's philosophy developed by George Lukács, Adorno, Fromm, Wilhelm Reich, and others was the sinister belief that unrestrained sex could be a useful and devastating instrument if prompted to run rampant. They promoted compulsory promiscuity, one-parent households, premarital sex, and homosexuality, which struck at the heart of the core values of family and childbearing as mainstays of Western society. So, is it happening? Yes, it's happening. And so instead of teaching our children how to write and read and do math, we're teaching them how it's okay to have a homosexual relationship. That's okay. Because that just takes your mind off of the fact that you don't know this other stuff. Because you're having fun with your partner, and you understand the concept is really insidious. It's satanic in bottom line terms. All right, Nathan?
Any other of these human life, wouldn't that have anything to result in the child? Number one, the child be
Yep. Well, absolutely. But when the government makes it, it's okay. All right? So, historian Ravitch went on to explain this. The driving purpose behind the 8 objectives, or these cardinal principles, was socialization. Teaching students to fit into society, the overriding goal was social efficiency, not the realization of individual desire for self-improvement. In other words, we want to develop as a group, not an individual. You're worthless as an individual only as you contribute to the whole or to the group, which is what socialism is about. And so the United States government stripped academic training from the core of the nation's school system. Now, some of you may not like what we're doing right now. You may think, well, this is just a bunch. No, it is not. I have spent a lot of time researching what I'm telling you tonight. I didn't come up with this yesterday. I've been working on this for weeks and weeks, and have gone through this stuff and found out this is exactly what they said and what they said. And so I want you to feel comfortable with that, all right? So, let me get back. Academics, we're talking about reading, writing, and arithmetic, were an afterthought. This needs to be an afterthought. We need to teach these kids how to have premarital sex and to redefine their moral base. That's what is really, really important. All right, emphasis on the masses. The cardinal principle of progressive learning is that independent thinking is useless to society, even dangerous, end quote. John Dewey, who is the founder of progressive education here in this country, wrote his PhD thesis on the German philosopher Immanuel Kant. If you ever heard of Immanuel Kant, he was a wicked guy. He was an 18th century German philosopher and a Central Enlightenment thinker. He was one of these progressive Marxist guys that wrote into his theory and into his research all of these things we've been talking about. And so here's what Dewey said of progressive education goals. The mere absorbing of facts and truths is so exclusively an individual affair that it tends very naturally to pass into selfishness. There is no obvious motive for the acquirement of mere learning. There is no clear social gain in success thereat. Do not try to improve yourself. That's selfish. You're being selfish. You're stopping the group from growing because you're over here trying to learn and improve yourself. That was John Dewey's basic idea, which I think is absolutely absurd, but that was what John was thinking. Education is dangerous. To the socialist, Marxist philosophy of learning, socialist education aims to prepare the student to simply be a cooperative, government-trained cog in the social machine. That's what this is all about. So an educated, independent thinking person is a danger to the end goal of a socialist educator. We don't want you kids thinking for yourself. Don't look over here. Don't look behind. Don't look at the history of socialism. Don't look at the history of communism. Don't do that. Look over here. Look at all these poor people that don't have what you have. Look at all these folks over here that are living in tents, and let's look at that. Well, wonder why. It makes you wonder why, because these principles have been inculcated specifically. San Francisco, California is a trash pile right now. People are living in the streets, they're defecating in the streets, they're using drugs in the streets openly, and I'm telling you, that's where this is leading, okay? How many of you young people, and I'm talking specifically to young people, you have an interest in your personal education? You want to become the best person that God has designed you to be. You want to follow the God-given goals, not the government-given goals. You want that for your life? I want that for your life. And you're going to have to, unless you're in a private Christian institution, you're going to have to fight to become that. So William Hurd Kilpatrick, who was the chair of the CRSE Committee on Math, argued severely for curtailing instruction for all math instruction for all but future scientists and engineers. If you're not going to be a scientist and engineer, you don't need to know math. Just believe us. We'll tell you what the numbers are. I don't want to go there. But we're being pushed to, can I say this? I think contemporary Western medicine is about symptom control. It's about symptom control. And if you will notice, if you're watching TV, every other commercial on TV is a pharmaceutical commercial. There's a CVS commercial right now, family. They're all smiling, and they're all happy. And they're going to CVS to get one of their 15 vaccines. And they come out with Band-Aids on their shoulder. And I'm telling you, COVID was not an accident. Okay? Let's put it that way. All right? Kilpatrick and Dewey visited the Soviet Union. These two guys that are kind of the papas of modern education. And they came away impressed and bragging about Russia's successful educational system. In 1929, Kilpatrick visited Stalin in Russia, and he said, quote, "No school system in history has been more thoroughly and consistently made to work into the social and political program of the state," end quote. Russia was just doing a great job. What was it doing? It was forming little brains to become part of the government machine. And by the way, in communism, government is the God. You worship the God. There is no God. Of course, atheism is one of the major tenets of that philosophy. But, all right. In 1929, Dewey visited the Soviet Union, and he was, quote, deeply moved by what he saw. And here's what he explained, quote, "The goals of the progressive school were undermined by the egoistic and private ideals and methods inculcated by the institution of private property." That's bad to own your own property. and profit and acquisition of possession. This is the enemy of communism, folks. Private property. No, you can't own private. It all belongs to us. It all belongs to us. And so Dewey praised the communists for changing the institution of the family, which John Dewey considered the family pernicious to communal living. Well, yeah, that's what it's supposed to be, is pernicious to communal living. You want a family. I want a family, a nuclear family, a mother, father, and kids. That is the basis of any culture worldwide, or at least it should be. All right? So, teenagers leave high school marginally prepared academically, ripe for radicalism. They are likely to embrace atheism, the theory of evolution, and Marxist materialism. They struggle to think for themselves. They know very little about their country. I'm talking about history and civics. And thanks to the Frankfurt School of Marxist and Howard Zinn's A People's History of the United States, which is full of inaccuracies. And right now, Howard Zinn's book is the history book that is used more often than any other book. Yes, ma'am.
I was taken child psychology class from a woman from Lebanon. We went into class one day, and all she taught us was about Allah and Islam. And I stood up and I said, now, wait a minute, this is not pertaining to child psychology. You're supposed to be teaching us. Well, you know, so I went to the dean and I complained about her.
Good for you.
For doing this. Everyone else was younger than me. They were great. So I went up to the dean and told him all about this. And how it's not right for them to be teaching us about Islam and Allah in a child psychology class. There's nothing to do with child psychology. So then at the end of the course, she was no longer requested to come back to teach. So she called me up personally and asked me to go to his meeting to let him know what a wonderful instructor she was. And I told her I was the one. And I hung up.
Good for you.
But we need more of the younger students, because I was older than her.
Right.
To really stand up for themselves.
Exactly.
They all sat there kind of, huh? You know?
Have no clue. Good for you. Good for you. And here's why. All right, let me explain. Thank you for sharing that. An overwhelming number of university professors lean hard left. Overwhelming. A study in Econ Journal Watch found the status of professors of history and social science at 40 leading universities in this country, with reference to voter registration, Democrats or liberals overwhelmed Republicans or conservatives 35-1. You go to a major university and you share your political philosophy, more than likely you're not going to get hired because of you're not right leaning, you're conservative, all right, which is what they call right, all right. So this is where they turn left at the university. Chinese takeout. Chinese communists invest heavily in U.S. universities, according to a Washington Free Beacon review of federal records. These investments influence the university decisions regarding the treatment of a communist regime and its ideology. Hire teachers that are sympathetic toward us. Hire teachers, or we'll cut your funding. All right? A lot of U.S. university faculty members endorse this action by the CCP. Yes, we think that's the way things ought to be. And so the Chinese are taking out a lot of our major universities with regards to their position and their beliefs about communism and socialism. It is satanic, okay? It is a murderous system that destroys individualism. It destroys the individual from wanting to become the best God wants him to be. They want you to be the best they want you to be. Government has become the God and taken the place of God in these countries. John Dewey helped bring the Frankfurt School of Marxists to the United States. Thank you, John. And their ideology significantly influenced liberal arts colleges here in the country, challenged the essence of academic freedom here in this country. A University of Pennsylvania historian says the most influential books for the humanities in the United States academe today were written by acknowledged Marxists. Yes, we're Marxists. They're using my textbook in a public school. To me, that's problematic. In fact, that's very problematic. Give you some examples. Gramsci's Prison Notebooks. Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed, all Marxist books. Franz Fanon's The Wretched of the Earth. They have been named the most influential books for humanities in U.S. academe today. These are written by communists. And yet they're the most influential books that our young people are being exposed to in universities today. Gramsci was an Italian Marxist. Thierry was a Brazilian theorist who agreed with Mao Zedong, who murdered 100 million Chinese citizens. I don't know that I can even read that. Okay. David Horowitz, Jacob Laskin identified 150 leftist courses offered at 12 universities that closely resemble political courses that are mandatory in communist countries. We're teaching the same stuff in these universities that they're teaching in communist China specifically. And their book, One Party Classroom, How Radical Professors at America's Top Colleges Indoctrinate Students and Undermine Our Democracy, recites a number of these classes, or they give a number of the classes at these major universities. The course that we were just talking about was prefaced with this statement. The goal of this seminar is to learn how to organize a revolution. We will learn what communities past and present have done and are doing to resist, challenge, and overcome systems of power, including, but not limited to, global capitalism, state oppression, and racism. So what are they saying capitalism is the equivalent of? Racism. Well, in this country, who can become successful? Anybody can. It is the only country that offers any citizen that opportunity, as a matter of fact. So, schools are the training camps. Teachers and the professors are the drill instructors. And students are the raw recruits of the socialist agenda. And if you'll recall, a couple of years ago, we had a fellow say our country, he said, I'm going to fundamentally transform America. That was his statement. Fundamentally transform America to embrace a Marxist form of culture. And so we need to lift our nation. I'm telling you, folks, we need to pray for America. We're not okay. We're not okay. And a lot of Christians that hear what you've heard tonight will say, preacher, that's a bunch of bull. You're just trying to scare people. You're just trying to stir people. Yeah, I'm trying to stir some folks to understand we're facing probably the greatest enemy that this country's ever faced with the attack of and the onslaught of our biblical values. And I, for one, I can't sit still and not say anything. I can't do that. I think I have an obligation to talk to my church about this. And I realize that there are churches and pastors that say, preacher, you just wasted an hour of time. I don't think I did. I think this stuff is absolutely required that we know what's going on. Because these are our kids. I've got a granddaughter. See, you young people, y'all are still in your educational process. You're going to have kids one day. Is this what you want them exposed to? You know? Personally, I don't. And so we need to pray for the future of our country, our principals, our teachers, coaches, people that have access to the minds of our young people. I wish every teacher in America was a Christian and had this philosophy of God has designed you to be a particular thing in your, don't let the government tell you, you've got to become this. That's not the government's responsibility at all. All right. Thank you. I think that's the last one. Let's see. You probably hope it is. It is. All right. Very good. Thank y'all. Yes, ma'am. Okay. 5 o'clock Sundays. It's not just moms, right? Okay. Any ladies can come. All right. 5 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. Okay. Do what? It kind of sounds that way. It sounds that way. All right. Thank you, Chelsea. All right. Anything else? Trey, thank you for bringing young people in. I appreciate it very, very much. And I pray that this has been enlightening to you, give you a little bit of insight into what's going on behind the curtain that they do not want you to know anything about. And so, well, it's 7 o'clock. All right. Right. It was. I know your heart, and I know Stacy works in the school system as well. Thank y'all for what you're doing, and I appreciate it. I appreciate it. All right. Anything else, Nathan? Been a while. Yeah, it's been here for a long time. It's been here for a long time. All right, y'all ready to go home? Are you hungry? All right. Thank y'all for being here. I love you and appreciate you. Let's pray, and then y'all be careful going home. Father, we bow tonight. Thank you for your truth. Thank you for the word. We here are committed to the truths of the Bible. I realize that it is contradictory to what the government teaches. Well, so be it. We choose the Bible. We choose the truth that you have implanted in the Word. May we embrace it, become living translations of it, change our country. Lord, I pray for President Trump as he comes into office, protect his life. And I pray that you would surround him with people who know the truth and who want to realign America with biblical Judeo-Christian ethics and values. Thank you for those who are here tonight. Bless us all in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank y'all for being here.